Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Catch Me Off Road here. I wanted to talk to you today about something that I see a bunch of people messing up on, and that is the launch control on the Ram TRX. It's not as straightforward as you would think, and I'll explain why in a second. Just wanted to show you, I went back to my 35-inch tires actually. I'm going to be going out to the Hollyoaks ORV Park here in Detroit, Michigan, in a couple days, testing out some new features in the track, and I didn't want to jump the truck with the 37s on it and rip a fender off. So I actually just put these back on. I'm taking it for a quick spin because I haven't driven the truck in about a week. But I'm going to hop in here and show you guys some stuff about the launch control. So first of all, there's some prerequisites to being able to use launch control. Number one is your mileage needs to be above 500 miles. You can see once mine focuses, I'm at about 2,700 miles, 2,733, so mine is unlocked. If you have a brand new truck, you will not be able to use launch control until you've exceeded 500 miles on the odometer. So I'm going to start up the truck, and we're going to go. I might need to have my seatbelt on, I'm not sure. I'm in a small parking lot right off a road here, so I'm not going to actually do a launch control, an actual launch, but I'm going to show you guys how to set it up. So normally you would just click on the launch button, but before we do that, I'm going to talk about some other stuff. So we're going to click on the TRX button. We're going to go over here into race options. So this is the most important thing with launch control. I'm sure you all have found this. It is the launch RPM. So this is the hold RPM before you release the brake. You're trying to keep the engine at this RPM and then it will launch. And the thing is, this was all copied over, all the software and controls were copied over from the Charger, Challenger, Trackhawk, where they're not custom or specially tuned for the Ram so much, for the TRX. So a lot of the settings, and I'll explain in a second, but are not really valid in this truck. So first of all, just by experimentation, you'll find if you put the truck in drive and hold down the brakes and rev up the engine, your engine will rev up to about 2,700 RPM approximately before lurching forward, before you power through the brakes. That's called the stall speed of the torque converter. You can look that up online and figure out a little more about it. But the reason I say that is if you set your launch RPM to higher than 2,700 RPM approximately, you will actually just push through the brakes. And let me go back and explain the reason for having launch control. So normally, if you wanted to launch the vehicle from a stop, the easiest way to do it is just to hold down the brakes, rev up the engine as high as you can, and then let go of the brakes and take off. Now the problem with the TRX or a lot of the Hellcat vehicles is the engine has so much torque, even at 2,000 or 3,000 RPM, that it pushes right through the brakes, and you'll end up doing a burnout. Or in the TRX, since it's all-wheel drive, it just lurches forward and it'll exit out of launch control mode if you try to use it at high RPM. So the reason you use launch control is because it actually has really cool software that will do spark cut. It will retard your spark timing to a point that you're losing a lot of torque, but you're still gaining the RPM that you want. And then when you're ready to launch the vehicle, the spark is pulled back. It advances the spark back to MBT or back to where you want to be for peak power. And then you already have the RPM there, and now you add the spark, you get all the power back, and it will launch really hard. So the only way you can get a high RPM launch without going through the brakes is if you have launch control activated, because it does a spark cut, if that makes sense. So it's actually cutting torque at your engine, but still allowing the high RPM that you need. So with that said, if you ever set it above 2,700 RPM, which it'll allow you to do, you can actually go all the way up to 3,000 and something here. If I drag the slider all the way up, 3,500 is the max it'll let you go to. And like I said, there's no point in going this high. The best results I found are right at 2,300, which is where it was set before. So let's go down to 2,300 RPM. 22, 23, somewhere on there for an unprepped surface, like a street like we're on right now. And what you want to do is, so once you set your RPM there, then you're going to click the launch button down here, and it will say vehicle must be on level ground. Okay, let me see if I can pull forward a little bit and get level ground. I was hoping this was level enough. Let's try that. Vehicle must be on level ground still. Okay, let me turn around in the parking lot real quick. Sorry about this, I should have tested it before I started the video. How about now? No, I guess not liking this because we are at kind of an incline on this parking lot right here, and the accelerometers are very sensitive. Let me quickly try to find another spot, and I'll be right back. All right, apologies for that. So I did find a place where we're kind of on level ground. We're still in a little parking lot. So again, I can't do a launch here, but I'll show you at least how. So I just went ahead and clicked the launch button. We're still at 2,300 RPM, and it'll give you all these criteria. So you have to be at 0 miles per hour, you have to be on level ground, your steering wheel has to be straight, first gear, and then brake pressure. So the brake pressure, we're gonna push the brake with our left foot right now, as hard as we can, and I mean through the wall. You can even pump it a few times to help build pressure. And you want it to read whatever the limit is, and then you're going to go in and apply full throttle. And if you listen closely, I'm actually going to open the rear window. If you listen, you'll actually be able to hear a difference in the engine sound when it goes into launch mode. And so listen carefully. You hear that? Okay, I let off there. But if I had launched it right there, it would have taken off like crazy. That is actual launch mode. Now, if you listen to this, I'm going to do without launch mode, and I want you to listen to the difference in the engine sound when I do it this way, without hitting launch, just pushing the brake and pushing the throttle with my foot, and listen to the difference in the engine sound. Oops, actually it's still in launch mode, sorry. Let me roll forward a little bit. Right there, you hear the difference? If you could hear that, there's a huge difference in the engine sound. It didn't have the two-step sounding launch. It just sounds like you're revving up your engine, like that right there. And that's the difference between launch mode and non-launch mode. And 90% of the videos I see online are of people just doing that, or they're in launch mode and it's not working correctly, and I'll explain that in a second too. So the difference in sound that's very apparent is really the telltale sign that you're in launch mode, and that it's active and that you're in spark cut. So that's kind of the easy way to tell. You can really tell a difference in sound. It's a lot louder outside of the truck too. So the reason why sometimes it doesn't work, so let me try again here. Let me try putting it in launch mode one more time. And I'm gonna see if it will let me do launch mode real quick. See right now the engine changed pitch, and it's not in launch mode right now. It thinks it still is, but what happens is there's actual safeties that protect the catalyst from overheating. You can hear my fans just came on. I don't know if you can hear in the video. But the catalysts, the catalytic converters on the engine get hot, and so they go into a protection mode where, since you're running in launch mode, you're running very retarded spark control. So your spark is very delayed from top dead center. And what happens is you're dumping a lot of excess heat into the exhaust system and into the catalyst. And when you do that, you end up running into temperature limits where you can melt one of the cats, especially on a big engine like this, 600 or a 6.2 with 700 horsepower. You're putting a lot of hot exhaust into the catalyst, and they can melt or do damage. And so you don't want that for emissions reasons. So what they do is they disable launch mode. And the thing that sucks is it doesn't tell you that's the reason. So if you do 2 or 3 launch modes in a row, you'll notice that it will do that on probably the second or third one. Usually the first one will work fine, and then after they get hot from doing a launch control, you will have to drive a little bit to cool them down, or idle for a few minutes, or shut off the vehicle, whatever you want to do. Let them cool down, and then you'll be able to go back into launch mode again. So those are just some tips and tricks for those of you who are trying to do constant launches. You know, sometimes you'll try to show your friend, and you'll do one, and then maybe they want to drive, so they'll hop in the driver's seat, and they'll hit it, and it's not working, and you can't figure out why it's not working. Well, that's why. It's because of it's doing a protection mode. So that's the same as the other Hellcats. You'll find that the Chargers, Challengers, and the Trackhawk do the same thing. What else do I want to talk about? That's probably kind of wraps everything up for launch mode. So, another thing that's important, when you're actually doing a launch, you'll find that if you're doing it properly, okay, first of all, another thing I want to point out is you need to be at full throttle. You can't just ease into it. You should, when you have your left foot on the brake and you're stomped down on the brake as hard as you can, your right foot needs to be pushing the gas pedal as far as it'll go as well. You want to have both of them pushed as far as you can, not just half throttle. You want to be full throttle, and that's the way it'll go into spark cut. Like I said, if you set your RPM too high, it's not going to work. It's going to push through the brakes because you're above the stall speed of the torque converter, and the brakes are no longer able to hold the vehicle back. It won't even if it goes into spark cut, it's still too much torque, and it'll blow through the brakes. But what I was going to say is the best way to launch it is actually in sport mode, or any mode where your traction control is turned completely off. Sport mode works really well. And the reason for that is when you run it in auto mode, or if you have your own custom mode and traction control is on, what'll happen is as soon as you let go of the brake on a launch, you got all this torque coming to the tires, and your front tires will, and maybe even your rears will spin. And once they start spinning, traction control kicks in and cuts power for a split second, less than a second, and then it gives you full power back. But you'll feel like a bog, a hesitation, where the engine will fall, the truck will fall on its face and then take off. And you want to make sure to avoid that by turning off traction control. Yes, you will get a tiny bit of wheel spin, but remember, you're in a 6,400 pound truck or whatever it is, with four-wheel drive and pretty wide tires. So you're really not going to have a whole lot of spinning. It'll be just a little bit, and it actually will help you get your RPMs up quicker. So highly recommend being in a traction control off mode, such as sport mode, when you're doing a launch. Otherwise, yeah, have fun with it. So I won't go into the performance pages, it takes too long to load up, but the best 0 to 60 I've done on level ground and verified by Draggy is 3.9, and that's with one passenger and about half a tank of fuel. And that was a 12.3 in the quarter mile with the Draggy, and it actually matched up to this, which is pretty nice. So let me know if you're able to beat 3.9. I've seen people get 3.5s, but I'm not sure if they're on level ground or if they're on a slight downhill slope or something like that, where it's not completely apples to apples. Anyway, yeah, that's the video for today. Hope it helped. Sorry it went a little long, 11 minutes, but yeah, hope you enjoy, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.